The morning sun filtered through the cafe windows as Margaret wiped down the oak counter for the third time. At 52, she'd learned that keeping busy quieted the memories. The small coffee shop she'd built from nothing had become her sanctuary, a place where the aroma of fresh pastries and the gentle hum of conversation wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Her daughter Emma, now 7, sat at their usual corner table, golden pigtails bouncing as she colored. In her notebook, the child had her father's dark eyes and serious expression, though Margaret rarely mentioned that resemblance aloud. 8 years had passed since that rainy November evening when James Holloway had chosen his family's company over the life they'd begun building together. He'd been 32 then, ambitious and torn. She'd been 44, foolish enough to believe love could bridge any gap. When she discovered she was pregnant weeks after he left, pride had kept her from reaching out. She'd managed. She always managed. The bell above the door chimed. Margaret glanced up from the espresso machine and felt the world tilt slightly. James stood in the doorway, older now with touches of silver at his temples, wearing an expensive suit that seemed out of place among her cafe's mismatched chairs and vintage decorations. His eyes swept the room and landed on her with unmistakable recognition. For a moment, neither moved. "Margaret," he said quietly, approaching the counter. His voice carried the same gentle warmth she remembered, now deepened by time. "James." She steadied her hands against the counter. "It's been a long time. 8 years. For months." He offered a small apologetic smile. I'm in town for a business meeting. Saw your cafe from the street." The name Margaret's place. "I had to know if it was you." She nodded slowly, unsure what to say. The anger she'd once carried had mellowed into something softer over the years, though seeing him stirred old ache she thought she'd buried. "You built something beautiful here," James continued, glancing around. "I always knew you would." "Thank you." Margaret's voice was measured. "Would you like some coffee, please?" "Black." "If you remember." "I remember." As she poured, Emma's bright voice cut through the tension. "Mommy, can I have another muffin?" Margaret's hand trembled slightly. She turned to see Emma walking toward the counter, her coloring book tucked under one arm. The child stopped when she noticed the stranger, suddenly shy. James stared at Emma with an expression Margaret couldn't quite read. Recognition dawned slowly across his face as he took in the dark eyes that mirrored his own, the determined set of her small jaw. "Emma," Margaret said gently, "this is an old friend, Mr. Holloway." Emma studied James with the solemn intensity that often surprised adults. "You have sad eyes," she said, matter-of-factly, "like when Mommy looks at old pictures." James crouched down to her level, his composure cracking. "Do I?" His voice was barely above a whisper. "How old are you, sweetheart?" 7 and March 4th. Emma held up her fingers to demonstrate. "I'll be 8 on April 16th, Margaret watched James do the mental calculation, saw the truth settle over him like a weight. He looked up at her, eyes glistening. "Margaret, is she?" Before Margaret could respond, Emma tilted her head curiously. "You look like the picture Mommy keeps in her music box. Are you my daddy?" The cafe seemed to hold its breath. An elderly couple in the corner paused their conversation. Even the espresso machine had finished its gurgling. James's face crumpled. He pressed a hand to his mouth, composing himself before speaking. I don't know. Am I Margaret?" Margaret felt 8 years of carefully constructed walls beginning to give way. She'd imagined this moment countless times, angry confrontations, cold dismissals, dramatic revelations. But, looking at her daughter's innocent face and James's anguished expression, she found only weariness. She knelt beside Emma, smoothing her hair. "Yes, sweetheart, Mr. Holloway is your father. Oh, Emma processed this with characteristic thoughtfulness. Did you know about me? James shook his head, tears now flowing freely. No, I didn't. But I wish. I wish I had. It's okay. Emma patted his arm with surprising maturity. Mommy says, sometimes people make mistakes because they're scared, not because they're bad. Are you bad? I don't know, James said. Honestly, I made a very big mistake once. I left your mother when I shouldn't have. Emma considered this. Are you going to leave? Again, the question hung in the air. Margaret held her breath. James looked at Margaret, then back at Emma. I'd like very much to stay if your mother would let me. Not the way it was before, but to know you, to be part of your life. If that's possible, I can undo the past. But maybe, his voice broke, maybe I could try to do better. Margaret felt the tears she'd been holding back begin to fall. She'd spent years telling herself she didn't need him, that they were fine alone, and they were fine. But watching Emma's small hand slip into James's larger one, seeing the hope in both their faces, she realized that fine wasn't the same as whole. We should talk, Margaret said softly. Really talk about everything, about what happens next. James nodded, still holding Emma's hand like it was something precious and fragile. I'd like that. I know I don't deserve a second chance, Margaret, but I'm asking anyway. Not for us. I have no right to that. But for her. Let me be a father to her. Margaret looked at her daughter, who was explaining her coloring book to this man she just met with such easy trust. She thought about all the lonely nights, the struggles, the moments she wished for help. But she also thought about the joy Emma had brought, the strength she'd discovered in herself, the life they'd built. It won't be easy, Margaret said, and it won't be quick. Trust takes time to build, especially when it's been broken. I have time, James said. Whatever it takes, Emma tugged on his sleeve. Do you like muffins? Mommy makes the best blueberry muffins in the whole world. James smiled through his tears. I'd love to try one. As Emma led him to her corner table, chattering about her school and her favorite books, Margaret leaned against the counter and let herself breathe. The future was uncertain, complicated, full of difficult conversations and necessary boundaries. But as she watched her daughter share her world with the father she'd never known, Margaret felt something shift inside her, not forgiveness yet, but perhaps the beginning of it. Outside, the autumn leaves drifted past the window in shades of gold and amber. Inside, in this small cafe built from determination and love, three people who'd been strangers just moments ago began the tentative work of becoming a family. Not the family Margaret had once imagined, but maybe something real and honest in their own. Sometimes, she thought, the kindest thing we can do is give people room to grow into who they should have been all along, and sometimes the bravest thing is letting them try.